It's been 2 weeks since a train carrying toxic chemicals exploded in North Platte's Bailey Yard. We've learned the Lincoln County commissioners have launched their own investigation into what happened, and many questions remain about how the chemicals were transported.
Any number of things could have happened that created what we saw that day at Bailey Yards.
Chief Thompson with the North Platte Fire Department has over 30 years experience.
I have never seen anything significant like this occur in North Platte Bailey Yards. That speaks volumes of Union Pacific's safety record.
But Andrew Faust, who represents members of Nebraska's Railroad Labor Union, worries Union Pacific's safety record may be in jeopardy.
We're taking away the layers of safety, and I always consider it layers of safety. The railroads have been wanting deregulation for years, and we've said this was going to happen, and it happened. I can't believe it didn't happen sooner.
Oh my gosh.
Our investigation has uncovered numerous safety concerns over how the highly volatile chemical perchloric acid was transported. To explain, we start at point A, where the rail car was initially loaded.
Union Pacific doesn't load these cars. They are owned by a separate company.
Union Pacific, all the Class 1 railroads, they move the car. They don't load them. They don't have anything to do with that.
In this case, it's believed a company in the Northeast loaded over 50 55-gallon plastic drums containing perchloric acid into a stack car.
If you've ever seen like a shipping yard, those metal shipping containers, that's what it was shipped in.
Everyone I spoke with agrees a much safer way to ship hazardous materials is in a tank car.
Those cars are built to withstand a tremendous amount of damage. And in this case, certainly might have changed how this went.
It's double protected. Those are lined. So it's like a tank inside of a tank.
And it's believed the barrels were
wrapped in saran wrap and then placed on wooden pallets.
Here's the problem with that. Perchloric acid becomes volatile when it comes into contact with wood or any organic material. And Lincoln County Commissioner Chris Bruns says the people shipping it should know that.
By the time it gets to us through Nebraska, we just have our fingers crossed that someone has safely packed these chemicals. And I don't know if that's good enough.
Exactly. Why was perchloric acid allowed to be shipped in drums on a pallet in a regular container car and not in a specialized tank car? And what other chemicals are being shipped in the exact same manner?
I told you about concerns over the way perchloric acid was transported by rail before arriving at Bailey Yard. So we wanted to know, after a car packed this way exploded, were adjustments made so it wouldn't happen again? Here's what we learned. And even after the explosion, Faust says he discovered perchloric acid was still being loaded the same way.
We were wondering, like, how many cars have been loaded this way? You know,
Yes.
Is there like 7 of them traveling across the United States right now? As of last Saturday, we found out that there was another car being loaded. So I sent communication to Union Pacific asking them, have we looked into like stopping this car from being loaded and figuring out a different way to load this? I was told that they were looking into that. They cannot reject a shipment. It just has to be loaded according to the regulations. So I have no information on that car. I just know that I've reached out to everybody that I know of that can stop it from being loaded that way.
So who regulates how chemicals can be transported? I learned there's an entire government agency responsible, and I've reached out to the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration numerous times and will continue to do so until we get answers.
I think the public have the right to know what's going through their town, you know, and this stuff it's not only perchloric acid, it's anhydrous, it's liquid chlorine. There are tons of material, volatile material travels through these small towns that could devastate
There are questions we have over what happened once the stacked car full of perchloric acid arrived at Bailey Yard. Questions I had hoped to ask Union Pacific. However, Union Pacific declined to be interviewed for this story. Instead, they gave me a written statement saying, quote, Union Pacific is cooperating with state and federal agencies investigating the incident. Union Pacific is also conducting its own analysis and review of the incident, including emergency response procedures. As with any incident, we will take what we learn and implement actions to improve future response initiatives. Here's what I've gathered up to this point in my investigation. OSHA requires an employee alarm system, and I was told by multiple people after the explosion, the siren never sounded.
That should have been an immediate situation, that whenever there's an explosion or a fire or toxic chemical that is posing a risk to employees, that the sirens there in Bailey Yard were to sound, and that did not happen.
Have you heard why that siren didn't sound?
No, that's something that hasn't been articulated to us yet. There are questions that we have that we're going to be asking. Lincoln County, our Board of Commissioners is going to be doing our own investigation in conjunction with the Federal Railroad Administration and several other agencies that are doing their own investigations. We're going to get to the bottom of where breakdowns were.
And while the public was evacuated within a 1-mile radius of the explosion because of the burning toxic chemicals, according to Faust, the workers were not.
My question is if North Platte, a section of North Platte was evacuated, then why wasn't Bailey Yard evacuated?
Just days before the explosion, the FRA writes to Union Pacific, conveying serious concerns about how they operate, saying Union Pacific appeared, quote, unwilling or unable to take steps to improve the condition of their equipment.
I've been asked numerous times that if there's any correlation with the FRA letter and this incident. At the exact moment, I didn't think that there was, because there was nothing wrong with the car, like physically. The wheels were fine, all that stuff was fine that the FRA found on those other cars. But now that reading that letter again, that talked about job cuts. Union Pacific's been cutting so many jobs.
What has transpired over a much larger overarching issue with the Union Pacific, with the recent layoffs and being short-staffed to address deficiencies in the rolling stock. That's absolutely part of the conversation that needs to be had.
When we talk about what went right and how this situation was handled, within minutes of the explosion, members of one of the state's best trained fire departments were on the scene.
I cannot say enough good things about how all of the first responders acted. They put their lives on the line all the time, and this was no different.
And everybody comes back to this just couldn't have gone better in terms of a response to a failure of a hazmat container, in terms of getting in there, identifying, getting it taken care of, and minimizing any harm to our environment. We all walked away from this feeling really good about the outcome.
When we talk about a positive outcome, all traces of the perchloric acid have been completely cleaned up, and according to the fire chief, there is not a threat of any future problems. All air quality tests have come back clean. As far as a timeline for the Lincoln County Commissioner's investigation, they've already had several meetings, and we will continue to communicate with Commissioner Bruns on the progress they make. If you have something to add to the conversation, the last Monday of every month, meetings called Link Up are held at Mid-Plains Community College in North Platte, and that's where the community has a chance to participate in roundtable discussions with Union Pacific officials. We're going to have all the details on our website, including the entire letter from the FRA, a statement I received from the State Fire Marshal's office on where their investigation stands, plus information on how to contact your state senator if you'd like to discuss legislation regarding rail safety.